Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters. As you know, I deeply, truly believe that money matters, not for its own sake, but for the choices it gives. One of the fundamental institutions of the United Kingdom is the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. If you don't listen to the media, you are uninformed. If you do listen to the media, you are likely to be misinformed. And sadly, even this great British icon, the BBC, is talking absolute drivel because it's republished this report, let's call it, from Zoopla. Renting is now cheaper than first-time mortgages, says Zoopla. And what do they quote by way of evidence for this? Well, this guy, Daniel Thomas, business reporter, BBC News, the rise in mortgage rates now mean it's cheaper to rent a home than buy one for the first time since 2010. And he goes on about the average rent being £1,163, average mortgage repayment is £1,285 using a 15% deposit. That's what they're saying. And then they give in this average UK home value of £263,000. So I thought, well, let's drill into that. Let's actually do the numbers as a property investor. And I want to do that two ways. I want to do it using the figures they've quoted of £263,000, and then I want to do it for an actual first-time buyer's house as opposed to what they're saying. I went online and I just looked for properties about this £263,000 mark that they were quoting. And I found this one in South Yorkshire, an area that I'm familiar with, £265,000. Price point is similar. So this is Arlington Road, Hatfield, Doncaster, DN7, and it's a 4-bedroom detached house with 3 bathrooms. It's gorgeous. So this one is almost exactly the price that they were talking about. We need to know, well, what is the current average mortgage interest rate you would get as a first-time buyer at 85% loan to value? Because what they've said in the article is, let's put down 15% deposit. I've researched this, and the best rate that I can get at the moment for 85% loan to value is 5.09%. It's on the market for £265,000, so your mortgage will be £225,000, 5.04%. Your repayment mortgage will be £1,227. Your interest only mortgage will be £946. But I've picked a similar property, also in Hatfield, also a 4-bedroom detached. And if you want to rent this property, it will be £1,250. Or you could pay £1,227 to buy it. Number one, that's actually £23 a month cheaper to buy it than it is to rent it. Number two, interest only is only £946. Let's call it £950 versus £1,250, roughly, just to give you a feel for it. What's the difference? Well, the difference is £300 a month is going to paying off that property. So at the end of the mortgage term, it will be yours and you won't have a mortgage at all. And let's say you paid this property off in 30 years time. Well, rent is going to keep going up, isn't it, for the next 30 years? Every year that rent is going to go up. It's £300 a month cheaper like for like if you just put the interest payments against your rent. But on average, property prices double every 7 to 10 years. Well, this property is roughly £250,000. So in 10 years time, it would have doubled to £500,000. And when you would pay off the mortgage, it would double again to £2 million. And you might be thinking, well, that's mad, Paul. This property's not going to be worth £2 million in 30 years. Really? I bought my first property, 269A Roman Road, in London, East Ham, for £9,000. It's now worth £500,000. That was 40 years ago. And you would own that mortgage free. So you'd have a £2 million asset. You're a millionaire at that point. As opposed to the poor old renter that just paid rent and paid rent and paid rent. Can you even imagine what the rent is going to be on this property in 30 years? And that's even ignoring the fact that, let's say you're a first-time buyer, you can rent out some of your rooms. You can't do that if that'd be subletting if you're renting that property. You can use rent-a-room allowance to go and completely legitimately earn £7,500 a year by letting out one of them rooms. So let's say you took in 2 lodgers, you let out 2 of your 4 bedrooms to lodgers, and you brought in, I don't know, £15,000 a year. Well, your first £7,500 a year is completely rent-free. It's called rent-a-room allowance. Go and look it up. You could pay your entire mortgage. You could live there cost-free if you just rented out 2 of your rooms. You can't do that if you rent. So for the BBC to be repeating this Zoopla headline-grabbing drivel, what's one of the main sites that rents out properties in the UK? Oh, that'll be Zoopla. Do you think it might be in Zoopla's interest to say that renting's a really good idea? Are you going to be uninformed or misinformed? Are you going to watch the media or are you going to do something about it? Now let's have a quick look at a more realistic first-time buyer property. In my view, because most first-time buyers don't go out and buy 4-bedroom detached houses with 3 bathrooms. They would generally go out and buy something like this. This is Bowlby, Doncaster again. This is £120,000. It's a 3-bed end of terrace. How much is that going to cost me? I've bumped the interest rate up a bit, even at 6.2%, which would be high if it really was a first-time buyer. And of course, as a first-time buyer, no stamp duty, nothing like that. Your repayment mortgage is 630 quid, and your interest-only payment is 527. 500 or 600 pounds, whether it's interest-only or repayment. Now, let's say you go and rent a very similar place. So we're in Bowlby, it's a 3-bed semi, it's 1,050. All the same things apply. Your £120,000 house is probably going to be worth £1 million by the time you've paid it off. But even now, day one, do you want to be paying 500 quid interest only mortgage, or do you want to be paying over 1,000 as rent? This is a genuine, legitimate first-time buyer's house in this area, and obviously all the different areas are going to be all different. Let's just end off by coming back to this drivel that the BBC has repeated from Zoopla, the main place in the UK you go if you want to rent a house. Renting now cheaper than first-time mortgages. Wrong, it's not. I'd encourage you to click the link below, and what I'd encourage you to do actually is read this magazine. We're going to give you this magazine completely and utterly free. It's success stories from our students. Click the link and download the e-version of this. This on the front, this is Helen Louise. Helen, in 1 year of starting versus doing the job that she was doing, she was earning 3 times from property, starting with no money, what she was earning from her job as a teacher. In 18 months, she actually sacked the day job, and then she took a year off. She is projecting that this year, where is it? She's going to earn £375,000. Now, you don't need me to tell you that primary school teachers in the UK do not earn £375,000. So you might want to read about Alan or Stephen. You might want to learn about how Simon did it. There are dozens and dozens and dozens in just this month's edition. Okay, that's it for this week's Money Matters. Imagine making a stupid financial decision because it was on Zoopla, because it was on the BBC News. Oh, the BBC says it's cheaper to rent than buy. I better rent then. Really? That could be a decision that costs you millions and millions of pounds. And if you can't trust the BBC, who can you trust? You can trust all of our students that have done it for themselves. So in case you don't know who I am, I'm Paul Smith, Touchstone Education. I've been a property investor for 42 years now, and I want you to be a fantastic property investor, zero stress, well informed, making decisions that will change your life. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.